Well, thank you, Camilla, for inviting me, and I'm very happy to be here to share a few thoughts with you. I'd just like to thank everybody who's been involved in this conference. I chaired the Conference Management Committee for a couple of years, and everybody, staff at the college, colleagues from the college, staff at Haymarket, staff at the conference centre, you all work really hard to deliver something brilliant, and so that's very much appreciated. Declaration of interest, we've talked about who employs me. WONCA, the college is a member organisation, so the college is a member of WONCA, and that makes all of you members. I'm not backfilled for that role, it's an honorary role. I do receive expenses when I go about my travels, but I have no other declarations of interest to share with you. And I only have to say that because somehow my slide that I'd lovingly prepared went missing. Let's do the talk. So this is the time actually to reflect. You know, we've had a busy couple of days, so now you're going home and you're going to start thinking, what did that mean? What have I learned? What am I going to do differently now? Was it just a couple of days of fun and then, you know, I forget it? Or is it part of my career? Because every time you make a choice on how you spend your time and your money and who you spend it with and what you do with it afterwards, actually, it's not just a conference. We call it CPD, but it's a part of your career, and sometimes something like this changes the way we think. So the interaction in my talk is in your head with the ideas and what you do afterwards with them. So one of our discourses as well is not only about our own careers, but about the generations who come after us, and particularly what makes people choose to become a GP or a family doctor, as it's called in many parts of the world, to distinguish somebody who does a specialty training to undertake that discipline. And I want to reflect not only on what I've learned from my own career and from the literature around careers and workforce and the stuff that works and the stuff that doesn't, but also what that means for us as we try to help the next generation of doctors to go forward together. And I'm going to do that not only from a UK perspective, but hopefully from a worldwide one as well. So, a little bit of biography. I was born healthy. I grew up in peacetime. I grew up in a loving family in a country that had 7 years before my birth chosen to run a national health service that was largely free at the point of use, and it already had GPs as a core part of that system. As a child, we could access safe water, enough food, good schools, mostly clean air. There was some smog still, coal pollution in those days, and we could move safely around our neighbourhood. My father was in regular employment, and my mother spent a lot of time play learning at home. So by the time I got to school, I got enough basic skills to make really good use of that opportunity, even though I was one of the youngest in the class. And my parents hadn't been to university, but they were very aspirant for people to get, good education, a good job. And in spite of me being a stroppy teenager, I did get my A-levels. And it was actually my school physics teacher who was really instrumental in changing my aspiration from doing science at university to doing medicine. Because I could not imagine putting myself forward as a doctor. I had no role model, and women were not common. Even then, I was 1 in 10 students, female to male. So I very much, remember that public services in our country, health and education, really gave me some life opportunities that I probably wouldn't otherwise have had. And I think that's where we need to always remember that the social determinants of health actually create career opportunities for many people that we would not otherwise have. Okay, how'd you like that? Then I went on to, do university. When did I first start trying to be a GP? I've got friends in the audience who were there at the time. I went to Africa on a youth exchange scheme, not a medical one, but second year, third year uni, in the holidays, I'd save up and then I'd go away for a couple of months. And it was coming back from Africa when I came and said, do you know, people get so sick there because there's no infrastructure, there's no primary care, and people go really, really late. And, you know, we're so lucky in this country. So it's actually going out of the country that made me understand what a good health system could do for its people. It was also enough for one of my tutors to say to me, bright girl like you wants to be a GP, that's a real waste. And we're still hearing that story run on, aren't we? So, and we didn't have much exposure to general practice, 1 week in 6-year course, and I was also told that was going to teach me how not to practice medicine. In fact, the GP I went to was great and only reinforced my career ambition. And I found, you know, other mentors. There were groups of us who wanted to do the same thing. There were role models we found, because we didn't have them in the medical school, but we found them anyway. And actually, it was a time when anti-establishment choices were getting quite popular. So there was a mood of social change, you know, whether it was anti-nuclear, anti-apartheid, feminism, lots of other life choices were being challenged and opened up. And again, I think the point I want to take from that is that where society is at is often conducive or not conducive to the sort of choices that people make in careers, including the choice to do family medicine against other types of specialty. And then once into GP training, I think, you know, there were a number of things that influenced my career, but at the beginning I just wanted to be a good GP, and I'd met my husband by then, Barry, and, you know, we were settling. I was doing a practice, I was bringing up a family, and I was supported also by the local Sheffield faculty at the time, who made a big effort to reach out to us, even when we were on the VTS. And that meant a lot, because you kind of felt part of a bigger club already. And I think that's one point we need to keep going on with, as I know the college is. Training wasn't that much different than it is now, although it was still a choice to take RCGP. And I think there were only 2 of us in our group of 12 who chose to do that. Which also was interesting. I had lots of friends in other specialties who all got the badge, and I thought I needed the badge as well. And, you know, it gave me a status that compared to some of my friends in obs or psych or whatever else they were doing. But there were 3 crucial factors that reflecting for this, I think really influenced me thinking about the bigger picture. First, the practice I was in was very clear that we could all have additional interests. It encouraged extended roles. You know, you do teaching, I'll do the political stuff, somebody else can have a clinical special interest, somebody else can go up the factory and do OC health for a day a week and bring the money back. The second thing was that we had a very good flexible salary model. So if you had to do extra for people, you got paid extra like an internal locum. We had a no buy-in, no take-out, so, you know, you were not feeling locked in the practice, you were there by choice, and we had less than full-time options. I actually got paid maternity leave, which was almost unheard of in my day. Our take-home wasn't very high, but the payoff, the flexibility was good. And interestingly, those kind of conditions have recently come up in a PricewaterhouseCoopers report about what the millennial generation want. They want reward, they want status, they want flexibility, and they want to have a choice. But then they'll commit. So there's something about the model there that I think we can go on thinking about. And then the third thing was that we really had a shared sense of values in our community of practices in North Sheffield. Nigel Mathers was in that with me, even then, from years ago. And we all aspired to make general practice better and to think outside the box. And we were already upscaling across those 10 practices, sharing on call, sharing some extended services like counselling or coronary rehab. And, you know, I think these models that we're now discussing are really important. I was pleased to see in that one of the sessions this morning, people saying, I think the mood's a bit more optimistic than 2 years ago, and maybe upscaling and upskilling will help us there. A word then on the college and the things that worked for me through the college, because it was actually not only the college supporting me when I was on VTS, but it was the college faculty administrator who sent round adverts saying the medical school wants people on campus. So I was the educational lead, I was doing teaching in the practice, I was trainer. But it was Marilyn who actually had medical schools looking for GPs on campus, and we were going, Yeah, because we wanted to see that change. You know, it was such an old-fashioned model. And then it was the prof of general practice who came to all the new GP tutors and encouraged us to do master's modules, because he was trying to make sure that GPs were scholars. And if we hadn't had academic training in the 3 years, let's skill up the community and try and get a bit more stuff in so that people know about evidence and know how to analyse data in their practice. And all the things that we're still saying really matter. And when Nigel Mathers and I were CPD tutors, it was the college faculty that let us start running GP-led educational events, and indeed GP team-led educational events, because in those days, otherwise it was still hospital specialists and pharma sponsorship. And you know, the faculty really gave us a lot of support to change the model of CPD in our region. And then as I went on into academia, you know, links with the journals, college conference, faculty networks, representation on college all mattered in the way my career slowly moved into a more national role. And I've forgotten all my bullet points, so let's do that now. That's the trouble with animation, isn't it? Let's do it. Look, faculty support, new roles, academic links, educational provision, publication, conferences, representation, and then 2 people who personally made a lot of difference to me, and many people I could name, but let's take Yvonne, who really encouraged me to follow in with her at chair of SAPC National, and research committee at the College National, and Maureen, who also really encouraged me to start taking up national roles in the college. So I owe a lot to this college, and I think if you click right and use the opportunities it can give you, and people also use you for the things they think you might be good at, then that can really help our careers as well. And then I got into the international networks. And of course, if you really want to influence change, you probably don't want to influence it just at your practice, just in your region, just in your country. There's a logical sequence that says what's happening elsewhere, and also to learn from what's happening elsewhere about what can work better. So then I got into Wonka, and I'll tell you a bit more about that. If we go to the evidence rather than the personal story, I think the factors, there's a wealth of literature here, and indeed the college has contributed to that. Respect to the recent WAS report about the culture of medical schools and how to make them more family medicine friendly. We need to keep working on that one. I'm currently involved in just one of many projects I've done about workforce around why women doctors are dropping out of the family medicine workforce worldwide and what can actually help them to stay in, and hopefully I'll report that to you very soon. In terms of a quick summary of the literature, of course, the person, you know, who you are early on, what opportunities you get, what your strengths and weaknesses are will make some logical lead into what career you choose. I think early impressions and experiences matter. So I've been to a lot of countries where people don't know what good general practice is. So it's quite hard for them to feel enthusiastic about it. Whereas I was talking to a young doctor, we did a workshop recently, and she drew a picture. We all had to draw something or write something, and she drew a tree with leaves. And she said, well, I've had the same GP ever since I was a little girl. And she said, now I see her on my own, of course, because I'm an adult, and I feel like she's the tree, and she's grown up with me, and now I'm flourishing, and it's partly because she was the trunk. And I thought that was a fantastic image. She remembered what good general practice looked like. Then there's what happens at school, all the stuff we talked about. Do you get to understand good GP as a career choice? Is your impression of its status good? What is its professional status? We're still struggling with that here, and many other countries are the same. Media examples. I wish somebody here would write a really good TV drama about general practice. Hong Kong's done it, except I can't show the film, Lorna, because it's all in Mandarin. But anyway, we'll do it one day. Visible role models, getting in there definitely, medical schools, careers fairs, voluntary opportunities, electives, so that students can see what you do. And then, of course, getting the professional training right. That matters a lot to whether our people out of foundation want to choose us, and how the graduates feel when they finish RCGP. And I think in the current circumstances where the training is very compressed and the environment's a little bit anxious and unstable, we've still got some work to do to get the training right, as we know. Salary and working conditions, guess what speaks loudly? If GPs earn 50% of every other specialty, people are going to think about what specialty they want to go into. May not apply here, but it does in some places. And then also how people are supported over their career. So we've had a lot of discussions in the workshops over the past few days about making a GP career work. We have a lot of autonomy, we have a lot of flexibility. We don't always have enough structural points that make sure that we get some breathers in a lifelong career. And I think the whole question about career support and development for GP is something we need to keep working on. And the flexibility of options. So I managed to write up my MD because I got something called Red Book study leave. Now, that was a long time ago, but it was like a mini sabbatical. And without that, I don't think I'd actually have managed to finish my doctorate. So building in gaps that don't cost us individually in our practice too much is just one structural possibility. And then finally, what support you get when you're in transitions. Again, this is a big issue. People often end up dropping out because they burn out, something goes wrong. An unplanned transition is particularly dangerous, and if the practice isn't resilient and supportive, people quit. And so we really need to look at how those structural issues and support mechanisms work to keep people in and to keep their careers moving forward. Very brief summary of the literature. If anybody wants to pick that up with me, you can find me later. What are the choices then? This is the diversity. And again, of course, at every conference, we see an amazing celebration. And I went to the Doctors as Activists. I saw the scholarship and careers work on the program. Lots of different things you can do, whether it's clinical, whether it's educational, whether it's a, full academic, track, like I ended up in. Political leadership and advocacy, a lot of people spend an extended role, repping for college, coming to council, doing the BMA, whatever their thing is. And that includes civil society as well. I wouldn't, want to miss that out because many people make an amazing impact by what they do voluntarily in quarters that are other than general practice based, but still using their wisdom and learning about people and health to inform their practice. And then there's international choices as well. And I've just put a few examples here. I think some of the training schemes are really supporting out of program experience in other countries on a reciprocal basis, which I think can be a great model. I think helping people who come to this country to orientate, get the best out of coming into the NHS and learning and working in the system, very important work. Getting involved in the international networks, a lot of the young doctors who are active at conference are actually active through Junior International or the Vasco da Gama, which is the European-wide movement for young doctors. And at the same time, of course, another thing in careers is what you do with your spare time and what your non-GP priorities are. So if you're trying to show a trainee a list of things that are possible, here's one I prepared earlier. It's short, it's sweet, you can expand it in detail according to what your experience is. But let's look at a few GP career examples. One of the things that doctors do sometime in their lifetime is work abroad. I've just put a couple of photos here. Colleague Mike Thompson from my Sheffield community, an examiner, postgraduate educationalist. I learned at the examiners conference that Mike's just about to do a stint in Jordan, working in one of the refugee camps, I think employed by MSF. But, so Mike in his last 5 is going to do a stint abroad. He's been a fantastic GP, fantastic colleague. Now he's going to do something different. The other picture is of my colleague Atai from Uganda, and Lillian's here somewhere, and she'll remember Atai. Atai did amazing work in the Ebola outbreak, as did some colleagues from this side, Bill Irish and co. But, so some of us do direct service some point in their career, and all power to them. Some of them do educational outreach through the college, for example. So International here is running lots of opportunities to try and help other countries on their terms to develop family medicine in their way. And peeking out from behind one of the colleagues in the second row on the right, this is a picture that Jill Edwards chose to give me. So she chose to give me one. We can't really see her, but she is there, and Steve Mole and she have been doing great work in South Africa, faculty to faculty work. My faculty's got 2 or 3 different link schemes through the colleagues who work there. This is a picture of my friend Dickie from Norwich in Myanmar, which is one of our twinning programs, again picked up nationally at the college, thank you, and expanded and built into something more robust. And thanks to Sonny Ong, who really led all this. Similarly, my colleague Arthur Hibble, who was our provost, has been doing work with his partner Charlotte in Kenya and Tanzania to foster their budding family medicine scheme. 7 family medicine specialists in Tanzania so far. I met them recently. You know, we have to nurture these buds. Great that some people do that direct twinning and mentorship work. Or if you can't do that, just host people when they come this side. Electives, study visits. We're often looking for people, where we can take visitors. And that's a great help to us for international work. And it enriches your careers on that day and often afterwards, because then you meet people you can go back. And what it does, I think, in the international sense is just to share the bigger picture. So even if you just read about some of this stuff or you look some stuff up, I'm going to tell you now about a clinic in Tahadi. So the picture that just appeared at the bottom is a clinic run in a slum area in Beirut, just across the wire from the Sabra and Shatila refugee camps, run by a foundation that is based in France, because the initial doctor there was French, now hosted by Lebanese people. They're doing community outreach. Look it up, guys. Amazing. Early educational opportunities, employment for refugee women through sewing and weaving and making clothes. And, if you sit at home and you just give some money to MSF or something like that, it's all going to help, because family medicine needs us to help the colleagues who are doing this frontline work. And in that way, working through the college and indeed through the World Organization of Family Doctors with these bigger networks, I think expands all our horizons. So it's supportive advocacy, really, wherever you are. Right, so what's in it for you then? That's all very well, Amanda, but what's in it for me? Well, I think it's networks. It's an expanded network. Whatever your career thing is, you get into another professional network. It might be an international one. It might be an academic one. You learn more. You get new resources, new educational resources. You might get bursaries or a prize. You get that additional vision. And you're also at the same time doing what we've been doing over these 3 days, mutual support, encouragement, maybe finding somebody who mentors you into the next stage. Wonka, like the college has specific working parties, special interest groups, young doctors movements. One of them's in migrant health. We had a great workshop yesterday with colleagues led by Chris Dyrick, but Chris Leonis and Maria de Muschenberg, who are here, who are working on our migrant health special interest group. Rich Withnell, who many of you will know, runs the conflict and catastrophe special interest group for Wonka. Val Wass is now chairing the education working party, and Claire Thomas is the chair of the Vasco da Gama movement. John Wynne-Jones, who I forgot to put the picture up, sorry, John, chair of Wonka Rural. So through Wonka, through the college and then through Wonka, many colleagues have had a really in-depth career opportunity to work with colleagues in other countries on their special interest to mutual benefit. So I just put that to you as another reason to benefit from your Wonka membership, because it's new career opportunities, as well as, again, that thing to add on making a difference. And it helps us to challenge ourselves. Again, stuff you learn from abroad grows us too. So have a look at the website. Where do things go wrong? Let's take a reality check. Being a family doctor is demanding. And I could give a whole workshop, as Claire has done before, on, health and well-being and the stresses of family medicine. The need for resilience, I think teaching, thinking about resilience, structural resilience and systems resilience, not just individual resilience, is a very important bit of making our careers work and the careers of our staff and learners and colleagues around us. I think giving mind to that bigger picture, what is the current political environment, what's the current societal climate, Is it conducive to the vision that we have of family medicine and general practice? Is it adverse? Is it going to undermine what we're trying to achieve? Of course, structural issues make a big difference. You know, what's the resources going into the sector? Is there government support? How much bureaucracy is involved? All the things that we're trying to challenge at college level. And then the support for individuals. I've been given my time warning, so I'm going to go to my last couple of slides. I didn't talk about depth yet. The deep task is we're in it for the long haul, and we need to, again, spend some time thinking about not what will make today better or tomorrow better, but what's going to make 3 or 5 years' time better, the bigger picture. I think one thing we know is that ongoing supportive relationships, whether they're home, practice, professional networks, academic, patients actually, you know, positive relationships help us to go forward. I think remembering what the key values are. I think making sure we've got variety. I've drawn your attention to some of that, but really making sure that we don't all have to do the same thing day after day after day, because you do burn out, however worthwhile and interesting that is. And also having a life outside work. And I sometimes, when I think I've had a hard day, I think about the guys in Tahadi or in Uganda, and I think, oh, Amanda, count your blessings. I'm not being overly happy bunny, but I'm just thinking it helps me to make sense of how big are my problems and theirs. And then my last slide's on the evidence. So if you're wondering why you got into it, let's just remember this. Still got work to do in many countries, but actually, most of the time, it's a great job. And if we play it right, there are plenty of opportunities for the future. And I'd like just to end with some quotes from Seher Ahmed, who many of you will remember did a great dissertation on this, asking, you know, well, what is it that works about GP careers? And we had I love the involvement, I like the variety, but also it's a good job for bright people who get bored easily. And I think it is. So, lots of people around the world doing the same job as us, trying to make a difference. I won't name them all, I haven't got time. We're all part of the bigger community. Enjoy the next bit of your career. Thank you very much. Okay.